Hi everyone, welcome to Geeky Vices. I'm J-Belle, and on a mostly weekly basis I'll talk about what some of my latest Geeky Vices have been. I did skip a week. November has been a bit of a rough month for me with miscellaneous health stuff happening, so I'm kind of going to bulk up on a few extra videos uh, this week to kind of give myself a little bit of a buffer, so keep that in mind. Anyways, my first video this week, I am going to be talking about my passion for Ruroni Kenshin. So, for those of you who are not familiar with it, this is an anime. This is a really great classic anime. It came out in the 90s. I know it's had at least 2 different dubs because I remember years ago I tried watching on Hulu back when Hulu still had free content, and they had 2 different versions, and one of the versions they totally bastardized the names of characters, which pissed me off. Like, they changed, I think they did things like change Yahiko's name to Yoshi or Yoji or something, and it's just like, it was names where there wasn't a good reason to change it, and especially for main characters. So anyways, this anime has very fond memories for me because back in high school, that we had a high school anime club, which I didn't join until I was a junior, but this was one of my first animes I was exposed to, especially ones that weren't just on like Toonami or whatever else was happened to make its way through the US. And we did originally watch the subtitled version, which was pretty cool. And I remember our anime club was twice a week, and one of the days we would be watching the second season of Ruroni Kenshin. I'm assuming they'd already watched the first season the previous year. So, and the other day we kept on changing around what we were watching. Sometimes it's because we were watching OVAs that just finished up in a couple of weeks. Other times it's just because people could not agree on an anime, because there'd be things where it's like, okay, the girls don't like this because it's just a girl and it's a skimpy demon girl the entire time, or okay, the head of the anime club is uncomfortable with this anime because there's definitely a very strong homoerotic vibe between the 2 main characters. So yeah, but anyways, Ruroni Kenshin, like, that one, like, was solid. Like, there was never anyone who was like, okay, let's take this off rotation. So for those of you who aren't familiar, as I said, it came out in the 90s. It's a great classic anime. It's also called Ruroni Kenshin basically means like wandering samurai, and the idea is that the main character, Kenshin Himura, he had been involved in the revolution that ended the shogunate era and instead to the Meiji era. So he was instrumental in that because he had been a manslayer on the side of the imperialists to overthrow the government. So he basically helped form the new government. And he regretted so much the number of lives that he killed that he vowed to never take another life. So he's now a wandering swordsman with a reverse blade sword. So he can't kill people, but he still has effective sword skills to defend people. And he's going around just helping people. And in the very first episode, there's someone, he meets a girl who thinks he's about to side the manslayer because there's been a guy going around town killing people under that name and using her family's dojo's fighting style. So it's similar to other animes, and I'll talk about like one particular anime this reminds me of in a little bit. But anyways, the girl is Kaoru. She's an orphan, but she's the assistant master for the Kamiya Kishin style, and she loses all of her students because there's this guy who was a former. We find out he's a former student of her dad's who's been just using the Batsai the Monslayer's name to institute fear with people and basically like ruin her father's reputation in dojo. So she loses all of her students. Kenshin comes and stops the guy and makes it so he can never hold a sword again by breaking his fingers, and that's just the start of the story where it's like he gets to basically save this dojo, which it's her. A lot of times there's Dr. Gensai and his 2 adorable granddaughters who are just these cute little girls as Ayami and Suzumi. Very quickly she gets a apprentice who's Yahiko, who I mentioned earlier, who is this young adolescent who descends from samurai, so he has a very strong sense of pride and nobility and such, and he very much has like he's very honorable, and he's very like much like hates being treated like a little kid because he's convinced he's more mature and he deserves to be treated with respect. He and Kaoru were like butt heads, like siblings, because he always calls her ugly, and she always tells him calls him a freeloader and how ungrateful he is, and he is sometimes lazy, but he is like one of the biggest devotees of Kenshin, like, because Kenshin does not want to pass on his sword style, but Yahiko will always and very, very intently watch every one of Kenshin's fights. And then later on we get Sanosuke joins the group, who is like one of my favorite characters. He was one of my first fictional characters who I had a crush on. I don't know, there's just something about, he's beautifully drawn. I've liked both the voice acting for both the Japanese and the dub versions. Like, they're both amazing, and there's just something about his vibe. Like, I always like the kind of the slightly roguish characters that have a good heart, you know, like, I like piratey type characters, or if we're talking about real life archetypes, it's like, I like skater boy types, where it's like they're a little bit outcasty and rough around the edges, but they still got a good heart, type of thing. So that's just so you know because it absolutely matters that you guys know what my personal type is. But yeah, Sanosuke, like, I love him. Sano is one of my favorite characters, and he starts off as being an adversary, becomes a friend, and he is very unique in that he has this giant sword. I can't remember what it's called, but he used to be called Sanza because of it. And he basically originally wants to butt heads with Kenshin because he also fought in the Meiji Revolution. He was part of the Seki Hotai, who were later disavowed by the government, called a false army, even though they didn't deserve it. They were just basically scapegoats. So he very much like respect, and he was a little kid he was probably Yahiko's age at the time, so he was like a kid at the time, and just really loved and respected his captain. But yeah, he joins the group, and then they get Megumi later on, who's a doctor, she's kind of like outer circle, but she's kind of like Kenshin, where she's trying to make up for all the pain she's caused by trying to save as many lives as she can. And so that's the core group. And first season, I've only seen the first 2 seasons. And there's 3 seasons. And for me, like, first season was epic. It was amazing. And for me, it's still one of the best seasons of any series out there. First season is a lot more like a lot of little side adventures, and there are some overarching arcs, and there's some of the characters that will matter later on, such as Ayoshi and the Oniwaban group. But yeah, so as I said, it's a lot of little more so vignettes rather than it being like one big overarching story. Versus second season, which I'm about to complete for the second time, there is one big main villain, Makoto Shishio, who basically is considered to be Kenshin's successor as far as being the manslayer, the manslayer. And so he basically worked under Jazz, and the government decided that he was too dangerous at the end, and he knew too many secrets, that they decided to try killing him. So they shot him a bunch of times and set his body on fire, and he still survives. So he's kind of like Rasputin, but he has all these weird abilities because his body burns a lot hotter than a normal person does because he has no sweat glands left, and he looks like a mummy. But yeah, he's basically ruthless and has a total Darwinian survival of the fittest outlook, and he's totally vicious. And he has a group of he has the Jupengatana, who are I think they also refer to as the 10 Swords. I never really hear, but basically, like, he has like this epic group of fighters on his side. And yeah, like the season has like such a great build up. Like, it's build up of like, okay, why does it matter that Kenshin travels from Tokyo to Kyoto to deal with this guy, and we see he fights like one of his old opponents, and we see that Kenshin's skills as a Ruroni, like a wanderer, isn't the same as his skills as when he's a manslayer. And so it's very much like that internal fight of being like, can he do this without reverting back to a manslayer? And also him leaving behind his friends, and they decide on their own all to eventually follow him and get stronger. I love Sanosuke's arc about how he gets stronger, and then and Kaoru and Gaiku go separately. Megumi has to stay behind because she's a doctor and she actually has responsibilities. And then along the way, he meets Misao, who's this young girl who is looking for Lord Ayoshi in the Oniwaban group, which I mentioned before. And Ayoshi was someone who was on par with Kenshin in skills, but he was working for this bad guy, Konryu Takeda, who had very strong Western influences, and he was pissed off that the Oniwaban group didn't respect him, even though he was their boss and paying them. So he decided to turn against his own hirelings and fire a Gatling gun on them. So he killed most of the members of the Oniwaban group, which was like these 4 main like badass like ninja type guys with different skills that just couldn't live in the regular world. And so Ayoshi's obsessed with trying to honor them by becoming the strongest, but he kind of becomes obsessed and turns somewhat evil because of that, and actually betrays like other former members of the Oniwaban group. But anyways, Misao was raised by Ayoshi and the Oniwaban group, and she is considered to be a member of the group if it had still been like active. So yeah, she's obsessed with following Kenshin because of that. She the first 2 times I watched it, she totally made me think of Kaoru, and the more I've watched it this time, like I'm actually seeing more of the distinctions between the two of them. But there are a lot of parallels because they are both fighters who will do anything for the person that they love, and they sometimes can be a little bit of loudmouths, but they also have very good hearts. But Misao is definitely much more youthful and reckless and doesn't think things through. Versus Kaoru, you can definitely see she is more mature. Like there's more of a groundedness to her, and like when she does freak out, it's more so about like worrying about Megumi hitting on Kenshin, for instance, or things like that, versus it being about things that are actually serious. She's actually very grounded at times, and is also very good about understanding fighting, even if her skill levels isn't the same level as everyone else. So yeah, those are like some of the main characters, and then yeah, as this whole journey of Kenshin deciding to do that, his original reverse blade sword breaks, so he has to get a new sword. He also has to find his old master to learn the final techniques for his fighting style, the Hiten Mitsurugi style. I'm actually really impressed with myself this time. I remember most of these Japanese words really, really well right now. I think it's because it's all fresh in my mind as I've been watching it. Usually, I do not retain this nearly as well, so it shows you, I think, a little bit about how cool this show is. But yeah, and then like as I said, like there's just ends up being all these different opponents, and like as I said, it does a really beautiful job of like scaling the adventure up. Like it has great pacing. Each of the fights feel appropriately epic. It feels like each character gets their appropriate screen time. And as I said, like I watched this show without having seen the first season, so I didn't know the background of these characters, and like I had no problem understanding dynamics. I mean, the only thing that was like a little bit interesting for me was like why Ayoshi was so important. And, like, I understand that a little bit. I understand that having now seen first season, but, yeah. So, I'm hoping this time I will finally move past the end of second season and watch third season, which I've heard is not nearly as strong, but I do want to finish up the series. And then there's a trio of live-action movies that I also really want to see. And I know with Japanese live-action, it can be really hit or miss. Some of them can be really good, like the original live-action Death Note movies were amazing, especially the first 2. The third one, L Saves the World. That one was just so that way you can see more of L. That's the only reason to watch that one. And to watch him, the actor as L, trying to stand up straight, which looks so funny. It's so funny, like with his hunchover posture, trying to stand up straight and walk like a normal person, which does not look natural at all, so props to the actor. The first of the 2 Gantz movies was fine, but some of them can be okay. I mean, the Netflix Death Note movie was okay. The Netflix Bleach movie was eh. But some of them can be terrible. Like the Netflix Full Metal Alchemist movie, which is awful, awful, awful. Like, seriously, I don't usually say this, but please don't watch it. It just is a waste of your time. I want those minutes. I want those hours of my life back. It was just... It totally made it so Al doesn't matter much. The actress who played Winry was there way too much, but she wasn't she didn't play Winry like Winry. It didn't feel like Winry at all. And so, like, one of the most important things about Fullmetal Alchemist is the dynamic between Alphonse and Edward, and they kind of muted that significantly because Al was written out of a good portion of it, and it was just a confused mess. The only good thing about it was the casting for Hughes, which if you know that Hughes is there, you know that the thing I always had to pace myself for when I rewatch any version of Fullmetal Alchemist is what happens with Hughes. Like, I always have to brace myself because he is another one of my all-time favorite characters. But yeah, as I was saying, I am hoping to, back to Ruroni Kenshin, I am hoping to finally watch the third season, and at some point soon, hopefully watch the live-action movies. I'll let you guys know if I ever actually do watch the live-action movies. I'm sure I'll make a video about that. But yeah, so that's it for Ruroni Kenshin. Oh, actually, I do have to mention one other thing that I was talking about earlier. Ruroni Kenshin always makes me think of the series Trigun. Or more accurately, Trigun makes me think of Ruroni Kenshin. This came out in a similar era, but there were just so many parallels, I just have to mention it really quickly. Firstly, the very first story is that it's someone who's trying to get past their past, about to say the Manslayer, aka Kenshin Himura, and also Vash the Stampede, and both of them have someone who, like, they're both kind of petite guys, and both of them have someone who is impersonating them, who is big and, like, totally abusing their reputation. Everyone thinks it's them, and then we find out that, nope, it's not them, and that's how we meet, like, also the female love interest of the series. But also the fact that both of them, their best friends are very similar. Like, both of them have, like, this one best friend that they always can rely on who uses way oversized weapons. Sanosuke, aka Sansa for hire. And Ruroni Kenshin also, I can't remember his name, but the priest guy in Vash the Stampede, like, he has that oversized, like, cross gun. Like, that's another parallel. That's, like, I can't help but think about one of the series without the other. They both have similar vows. Kenshin promises never to kill anyone. Vash promises never to kill anyone again. But they still will use their skills to help out people. So yeah, sorry I had to rush through that, but I had to say it. I had to say it. So yeah, until next time, thanks for watching. Hope everyone continues to enjoy their own geeky vices, and hopefully checks out Ruroni Kenshin. Right? See you guys later. Bye.